So after 25 years playing in the dirt with this little beast, it's a 310G. It's about 1967 or so, 67, 68-ish. I decided to upgrade. This has been an excellent machine for me. It was where sort of I cut my teeth, so to speak, with equipment, and upgraded to this one here, which is about 30 years newer, 98 or so, D5C, and about 3 times the weight. This one is about 6,500 pounds, and this comes in at 18,500 or 600 pounds. The story with this one is actually a gift, so to speak, from my father-in-law. The story there actually is my wife's father gave something to her and her 2 siblings, her 2 brothers. To one brother, they gave an antique car, like a Galaxy or a Fairlane, a 66, something like that. The other brother got a Dodge pickup truck, like a Power Wagon. And my wife got a bulldozer, which I was very happy with because I was able to share in her ownership of this bulldozer. Actually, it wasn't until a couple of years ago that my wife ever sat in that seat there. But this has been an excellent machine for me. It's made our yard, it leveled our grass. I pulled a lot of logs out, did a lot of things. I made an arch for it, a logging arch. Which is what this Power Beyond is. Well, it's not really Power Beyond because I had to have a separate relief valve. But that's what this is, so it does have rear remotes, if you will. And I used it with the dump trailer, that red dump trailer right over there. So I dumped lots of gravel with it. So on to the new one, a D5C. This was, I think, the last series where they had a power shift. So you see the two steering pedals and the deaccelerator. So I'll talk over the difference in the transmissions. This one has a clutch and a brake. So this is really like a traditional tractor. The 2 levers are simply brakes. It has a differential in there, just like an automobile, but just like a modern day tractor is if you press on one side, it brakes that side and causes the other side to go that much faster, is what a differential does. But there's power always available to both axles. With the power shift, which I think is maybe a generation or 2 advanced from that one, it has a torque converter, which is like you'd find in an automatic car, automatic vehicle. So at idle, the power does not go to the transmission. That's the throttle there. If you pull back on the throttle, give it some RPMs, the torque converter will engage the drive shaft into the transmission and provides power to what is a ring gear and a pinion, but it's basically posi traction. So until you press a brake pedal, a clutch brake or a steering pedal, it's going to go forward. Both tracks will spin at the exact same speed regardless of the load on either of them. Let me pardon while I throw the ball to this little girl. So to steer this, you press in steering pedal, you depress it slightly, and it engages the clutch, which it disengages the drive to one side. But it can still idle along. So when you first press it, let's say you're pressing the left side, this will likely still be turning a little bit, but this one will go faster. The right track will have power, the left one will not. If you continue to press the pedal, then it engages a brake, so you can actually stop this track. So I've not used it a lot. It didn't seem to be a whole lot of getting used to compared to just the lever controls. Some little nuances. When you press the steering pedal on this one, you'll notice the tractor slows down a bit, because now you're turning in a radius and the outside is going the same speed it was when you're going straight. Where a differential like this, you brake on one side, then the other track will go a bit faster. So when you go in a circle, this track actually speeds up, and the speed of the dozer does not change much when you go in a circle. Also, a huge difference here is the nature of the blade. This is a two-way blade with a manual angle. If you've seen my other videos, you might have seen me angle this manually. Actually, I think there's only one other video that has featured this on it to any great extent. This blade is a six-way, so it goes up and down, it angles left and right like a snowplow, and it also tilts. So this cylinder is the tilt. You extend the cylinder, then it makes the blade tilt that way. You retract the cylinder and it makes it tilt this way. So to allow that that motion in two directions is basically a ball right there. Trunnion, I think it might be called, but it's basically a ball socket. And you have this, which I think this is rather loose. I'll get to that in a bit. So this basically is what it pivots on, left and right. And you can see the slot here allows it to tilt left and right. So I'm guessing it's not supposed to have, which looks to be the better part of a full inch of space there. I did look at this part. You can buy it. It's welded on. It's rather simple, but it's rather pricey. It's just under $500 for that, which looks to be a 1-inch plate steel with that cutout. Other models of this same series have a pivot up here, a pivot arm that mounts to this and mounts to that, and it pivots left and right to hold the blade from going back and forth that way, but allows it to tilt and to angle. The other adjustment you have with this is the angle. Tilt angle, and it's probably a name for it. But in the rest position, whether this blade tilts that way or whether it tilts that way will determine how aggressively it cuts into the ground, and perhaps how smooth it works or something like that. I'm not sure. But in this one, you take out shims. I think you take them out there. So if you take out a shim there, that moves this pivot point back, or you can add shims to bring it out. What is handy with this pivot arm up here, the models that have it, is some of them are adjustable, almost like a turnbuckle, where you can adjust the distance here to force the top of the blade that way or back. So I am I'm going to have to give it some thought. I don't know how much of an issue having that much play in it is. I don't think anything on this is going to be much of an issue for the first year or so usage that I'm going to have it. I'm just not going to put that many hours on it. But I don't know if I want to replace that just with a newer one, or if it would make sense to try to retrofit and put the linkage up top here. I wish I could remember the name of it. These 4 bolts here were put on by the previous owner for a laser level receiving stick. So since I did my initial video of sort of a walk around of the dozer, I did get a chance to use it a little bit, and I was able to watch this joint here, this pin and slot, whatever it's called, while it was operating. And I was surprised that it really never hit front or back, whether you were pushing an angle. So I'm guessing that these cylinders, the angle cylinders, sort of provide that stability. So it pivots at these cylinders and at the ball joint at the bottom. So I'm not sure what this is for. If this is just some sort of a safety, or if under some conditions this does get pushed back and forth. It obviously has some wear, because this, you can see the end. Well, you can't see it, but I can feel it. The end is peened over a little bit, so it does hit on this slot, and obviously they wouldn't have a slot there for no good reason. So I don't know. So I'll either figure it out as I use it, or if someone has an idea what the purpose of that slot and pin is, then they can put that in the comments. Track adjustment on these older ones was done with that threaded rod. It's just a 1-inch threaded rod, and you can move the idler frontwards and backwards. It has a spring in there which will absorb any shock load with the track, or if you get a rock stuck in there somewhere, it's not going to break anything, it'll just compress the spring. Inside here, this has a spring as well. I'm not sure if it's front or back, but like all modern track equipment, it has a grease piston where you apply grease to it through that access hole, and it pushes the piston out, which is a lot easier. This one is a bear to adjust sometime, particularly when the track slips off, which I've done before, and to put it on you really have to loosen the track to easily get it back on, so you're taking a tool and trying to get through the mud and the rust and free that up. This one is a 4-cylinder gas. This model case did come with a diesel option. Obviously this is not it. This one is a diesel engine, 6-cylinder. It's rated, I think, at 90 or 95 horsepower at the flywheel. This one I'm not sure, but I think it's something on the order of 30 horsepower. But in operation, there's a huge difference. I mean, this is very limited, probably just because of its age. It's just a tired motor. You can push easily in first gear. You can push some in second gear. Third gear, you can see there, is really just a travel. Even going uphill, if you apply a brake to one side and steer in third gear, it really lugs the engine down. So up here at the operator station, this is basically a governor or throttle. On low, it's going to sit there and idle and not go anywhere, even if it's in gear. Safety lever, which basically allows the transmission to engage or not. I mentioned a deaccelerator pedal, so normally with a dozer it's going to run at whatever speed you have it. I would assume in most cases full throttle. You want to do a turn, or you want to slow down for some other reason, or reverse, then you just press that and it immediately deaccelerates. There is no clutch. In fact, it shifts very smoothly. I don't think it allows me to go in gear, so it's there. So that's a mechanical. There's nothing electrical about it. It's just a mechanical interlock. Second, third. This actually shifts very nicely. And to reverse for a second, third. Horn. Very minimal gauge stuff. There's not much in the way of electronics. There's no emissions on this. There's just very little to go wrong, which is why I chose this over a high stat, which is, I think, the brand name of the hydrostatic controls for Cat is high stat. This is the blade control. Forward, down, back, up. It has a float, so you can it is detent to float in that position, which is good for back dragging. Left and right is tilt, and twist the handle to angle it. So one of the reasons I chose this one, it was not the cheapest one on the market. is I didn't have to do anything significant to it. There were cheaper ones I probably could have spent $10,000 less and purchased one that probably needed some almost immediate attention with the undercarriage. The undercarriage has been replaced. This has like 7 or 5,800 hours on it. So it's been replaced. I don't know if you can see it, but that says cat on it with the, so this original cat parts. This idler here has very little wear. Some of them actually a groove. It almost looks like a hollow spot in there where the rail will ride. These pins, I can't really feel any wear. There's no significant wear at all on these pins. The idler, it looks as though there might have been some weld repair, but actually the idlers are not all that expensive to replace, and they're relatively easy to replace. So if for some reason I did need to replace that, it's not a big deal. The sprocket segments, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. They bolt on, and those are relatively in good shape. Ones that are really worn will be pointed, almost sharp right there. New ones, this is sort of a blunt surface, a flat edge. So this has a little bit of wear in it, but not much. The grousers themselves are relatively pointed corners. The edges here are pointed. Worn ones like this will be much more tapered, almost to a point. The edges will be worn. These were square at one point. They're not now, and very little height to them. I don't know what the original height is. I'm sure I can get the measurement, but that there's probably 2 inches, 1 3/4 to 2 inches. The last thing I think I'll go over is just the condition of the blade itself. We've talked about the pivot points. I don't know. I haven't had anyone move the blade and watched it. There could be some play down there. There could be some play here. But again, these components are not that difficult to replace, and, well, except for that, they appear to be relatively reasonable in price. But the skin itself is a bit thin. You can see here that it's worn through. Looks like it's been hit, you know, maybe a trailer hitch or something. There's a dent there, and similar to over there in the same spot on the blade, it's starting to come through there, so it's thin. I will replace the end bits at least. Now the blade is sort of sunk into the ground, so I don't know what these middle sections, there's 2 of them, look like for a cutting edge. But these are under $100 each. In fact, I think aftermarket you can get these for like $50. I don't know the condition of these nuts because they're also buried. They're under there somewhere. You can buy replacement skins. I'm not sure about this blade, but at least bigger ones, they'll come in 2 sections with the approximate curvature for whatever material that you buy them in, like a wear resistant, an AR type plate or something else. And you just weld them on here basically around. You drill some slots or some holes and weld it in the center as well. But overall the blade looks pretty good. It looks pretty straight. It doesn't have much of a bow, so if it was mistreated, it was mildly mistreated. Not mistreated, but just used, because sometimes the corners of these will be used to root or to dig out rocks and stuff, and that can cause the blades to bend a little bit. There's no obvious wear in the C-frame, which is what this is called. This is the C-frame. There doesn't appear to be any significant wear. In fact, this appears to be relatively new. It may or may not be, I don't know. And I haven't tried to grease everything, so I don't know if all the fittings have grease or not. I think so. At least the previous owner seemed pretty meticulous about greasing. He did every fuel change, every fuel fill up, and every 250 hours was an oil change. So over there, normally you could see the mountains pretty clearly. If we were in July or August, that haze over there would be humidity. But since we're in May and there really is no humidity, that's a smoke from the I think the Western Canadian wildfires. So it's actually probably the worst I've seen it as far as haze goes. in those fires. So that's it for a review of these. If you have any questions about them, let me know. I don't know much, but what I do know I'll share. I'm excited to use it in some applications. You'll see it a lot, pushing some dirt, maybe in the wood some. But for now, thanks for watching. I appreciate it.